Hello, hello. A-
Hello, hello, hello. How is
And
everybody?
yeah, welcome to Morning Musings. So I'm Kathryn and this is Rachel. And together we are two life coaches who spend a lot of time helping people untangle the messes that life tends to throw at us.
Every week we're grabbing a cup of coffee. And again, not coffee today because I'm trying to recover from my CrossFit workout this morning. And talking about patterns, habits, coping mechanisms, and downright weird things we humans do that keep us stuck. If you are finding yourself saying things like, gosh, why does this always happen to me? And why does the universe hate me? You are in the right place because the universe does not hate you and God doesn't either. He loves you.
So today we are going to be talking about a little bit of a tricky subject, where we explore identity versus experience. And the prompt for today was, I'm just an anxious person. And that's just how I am. So
Mhm.
people using that to explain away their behavior or, using it as an excuse.
Yes, and also maybe using it because they truly believe they're stuck.
Hmm.
That this is who I am. It's they've tried all kinds of different things to not feel this way, but they haven't been successful in getting rid of the feelings because they've never really they've never really had a chance to learn what it feels like to actually heal your nervous system.
Right, right. Yeah. I remember before I became a life coach, long ago, there was this girl I was talking to, was kind of friends with for a time, and she was pretty well just hell-bent on letting her chronic illness consume her. And it was one of those things where I have my own issues that I'm dealing with chronically and pain-wise and everything. And so I understood to an extent what she was dealing with, but then I didn't understand why she was just letting it consume her. And whenever I brought it up in a conversation, she said, and it's always stuck with me, she's like, I don't know who I would be without this.
Hmm.
If I got better or if I did better, I don't know who I would be. And that always stuck with me. And now I
Hmm.
understand why. It was because it really upset me that that was her entire identity, was built around letting this chronic illness win every time she turned around.
Well, and it goes a little further than that too, because it's about currency. It's about what we use in life to get our needs met. That's always what it boils down to is what are we using? How are we presenting ourselves? So some people utilize let's just say there's a very successful man who is out there and he's killing the business, killing it in the business world, and then he shows up to other things that are maybe more social, but he still does the same stuff. He shows up at church with this kind of um, business owner, business manager type attitude, and nobody can connect with him. And he starts feeling lonely because his entire identity is his currency. It's how he gets his needs met. And he's never really looked at, I'm at the reality that I'm not what I do. I am who I am. And a lot of people have never really done the work of finding out who am I if I'm not a mother. And this was a recent, bit of work that I had to do. Who am I if I'm not Jonna's mother?
Hmm.
And I mean, my daughter is 41. I mean, I'll always be her mother, but maybe the question is, who am I if I'm not actively, constantly mothering my daughter, which is so, incredibly inappropriate at 41.
Right,
So,
right.
I mean, we kind of recognize this and we've been doing the work around that, and that's been real good, for me to actually explore what survives when my role as being Jana's mother and changing the tide in, in how I was mothered, that became my whole identity, which is really shocking. I think a lot of people maybe thought that my identity was as a soldier, but also my identity, I think a little bit was as a soldier. And by the way, that got, my, if those were underwear, they were pulled down around my ankles, when I went to climb the first mountain that I climbed. And I was like, I'm not anything that I think I am. So what survives, what survives when everything that you believe about yourself and what you do falls away? Well, the
Right.
parts of me that love nature survived. The parts of me that love and have great empathy for people and animals. That's my identity. The part of me that is very connected with my faith,
Yeah.
that survives. The part of me that is loyal. Even though in my distant past I struggled with being a loyal, what I would consider, loyal, making decisions that I felt weren't loyal. So, but those are my values. That's what survives. And so identity is important. And so if we are not anxious, if we are not this thing, but we suffer from this thing, it
Right.
becomes something now we're responsible for.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And it's a pretty popular thing right now for a lot of kids, at least kids that I've met, to whenever it's time for them to step out and try a new thing, like get a job or start driving or something. They immediately like start throwing hands up and going, I'm too anxious for that. And I'm just I have social anxiety. I have this, I have that. And we as adults tend to just kind of blink and laugh at them because it's like, okay, real life isn't going to accept that. So, you can't let that become your identity. That is your experience. And I think that's a big thing that we kind of have to define. And we often, as coaches, do help people define, like, what is your identity? The answer to the question of who am I when everything else is stripped away versus your experience, the lived reality of what has happened to you and what does happen to you.
Mhm.
So your identity encompasses your core values, your memories, your belief system,
Yes.
and the social roles you occupy. Um, it acts as a lens through which you process the
Mm.
world.
Yes.
Whereas your experience is just the challenges you've overcome and the environments you've explored, and that does feed into your identity, but it does not mean that has to be your identity.
Right.
And we've actually had studies done where siblings, twins, I believe there was a twins study long ago where, they came from the same household, they were the same age, they had the same parents, they had
Mhm.
most of the same experiences, and yet they built their identities completely different based on those experiences. So, experience comes down to, okay, you have struggled with social anxiety, or you have struggled with chronic illness.
Mhm.
So, how are you going to let that build your identity? Is the question there.
Excuse me.
That's okay. So,
Um,
yeah. So, any other thoughts on that?
Well, I think, and also my thoughts on it are, a lot of this has to do with fear. So, fear of failure. And of
Yeah.
course, as we always tell people, failure is what we experience on the way to success. It's
Yes.
not the opposite of success.
But failure is a core human thing that we must experience. Like we don't do well in life if we do not have failure. Period. That's the very essence of being a human is that we must fail. We fail learning to walk. Most people don't think that because we see each other out walking around, most of us anyway. But normal human development requires multiple failures for us to learn how to walk. And anybody who's gone through rehab having to relearn how to walk will tell you that experience that they've had. And that doesn't build their identity, it's an experience and it's building
Mhm.
resilience and knowledge
Yes.
and giving you that ownership and that power to keep going forward with it.
And I think
Um,
that's in a lot of ways what faith has, will can kind of offer people is the identity in, if it's Christian faith in Christ. And this is where the foundation that, that particular faith wants to build. It's that you're not what you do. You're not who you are in the world. We have to be equipped and be able to curate our lives that exist in this world. I mean, that's the reality. But we aren't that thing that we're doing. We are already just precious beings in and of ourselves. And that should be the foundational approach that we take to take care of ourselves, to do the things we want to do. The whole reason that I'm suffering through this workout thing that I'm doing right now, that's literally got me working out about 4 or 5 hours a day, is because I want to experience a part of Colorado and a part of this country that I will never see otherwise. And so I'm doing something very hard. So I think, one of the things you and I talk a lot about is, well, people say, well, yes, I am stuck in this. My identity is like, it was very discouraging for me to realize my identity was as wrapped up in being my daughter's mother at 41 years old. She's 41 years old, that I didn't think it was. It was something I didn't see. And then when I did see it, it was discouraging. And I thought, well, who am I if I'm not that thing? And then I had to really start doing the work. So I think doing the work is part of it, learning to get in and be in that pain and not try to just avoid the pain. Just go ahead and have those thoughts. Feel scared. Feel
right.
all of those feelings. Feel discouraged. It's not gonna. The world is not gonna cave in if you have a few days of being in pain, trying to figure out what we're what we're supposed to be really using as
Right.
our source of identities and values.
Right, right, exactly. Yeah. And I mean that's something that I've had to go through multiple times, just even in the walk as becoming a life coach and stuff. Having to move through career changes, if you can even call them that at that job changes, more like, and just having to learn how to do things is always uncomfortable, especially whenever you feel like they're all brand new things to you. It's so uncomfortable to have to learn all of that and then step into an area where you don't know what success looks like and it's none of it's familiar to you. There have been so many times where I've just wanted to throw my hands up, throw in the towel, and go back to being a housekeeper and stuff. And it's nothing wrong with being a housekeeper. And if I need to, I know how to do that. But that's not where I wanted to stay at. I didn't, that was not what I wanted to be for
It
the
wasn't
rest of
your
my life.
dream. It wasn't your
Yes.
vision. Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
so why would you choose, so again, it's deciding what you want. I
Hmm.
think I told you I had a client several months ago ask me, okay, enough of all this hard work. Can you just give me a sentence that will help me, just then I can use that sentence and I can just, it'll solve my problems if I do the thing. I said, well, yeah, figure out what, And they were surprised by this. I said, figure out what it is you want and how to ask for it or go get it.
Hmm.
That's it. And she said, that isn't easy. I said, that's why we're doing this
That's
work.
why we're doing the work. Exactly.
Yes,
Yeah,
but
you
it
could
really does
really,
boil down to it. What are you
yeah,
willing to suffer for? What are
yeah,
you willing? Because look, as life coaches, I'm here if somebody, I'm like a basketball coach. If you want to learn how to play basketball, I'm here and I'll teach you because I know how to quote play. I don't, I wish I always wanted to play basketball, but I know how to get out of this. I know, I know the way out of this dysfunction. And my job is to pick up a flashlight and point it at the trail. Your job is to take the steps. But if a person doesn't, if they like this, if they like their thing that they're hiding behind, I'm just an anxious person. I have a learning disability. I have a learning disability that I have dyslexia very badly. I had to learn around it to get school done.
right,
So, I mean, for people who want to, there's hope and they can, but they have to dig in and not identify themselves and stop saying those words.
right.
If you suffer with anxiety, say, I'm suffering, I'm trying to learn how to um, get past my anxiety because that's possible.
Yeah, yeah. It's that's something I all the time am kind of consciously watching up here. I struggle with asthma. I don't have asthma. I struggle with asthma,
Hmm.
and I have to be aware of that. I have to be aware of what kind of stressors and chemicals I'm around because I struggle with asthma
Right.
and I struggle with ADHD. I don't have ADHD. I won't, I'm not gonna wrap myself around that. I struggle with ADHD. So again, I have to be aware and I have to attend to it. I have to set timers. I'm time
Yep.
blind. I get distracted, all of this stuff. And
Me
it
too.
just, it's one of those things. And that was a sticking point for me one time. A, a potential employee came in to where I was working one time, wanting to be interviewed, and her one of her opening things was, "Well, I have ADHD and I'm time blind, so I'm gonna need you to." And she makes this whole list on things that she needs our office to do to help her stay on track and stay on time. And I was like, no, that's not how that works. I'm not supposed to give you a wake-up call. I'm not supposed to tell you that you know, you need to wake up and come into work. I'm not supposed to tell you when it's lunchtime. I'm not supposed to tell you these things. Like, you have the same device that the rest of us do. You can set timers and you
Hmm.
can get yourself around. And
Yes.
she'd made that so much her identity that it was like, oh, well, then you're not accommodating me. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to accommodate you.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's
Yes.
not going to work.
Yeah. Again, it's I think it's back to that original statement. Figure out what you want and then learn how to go get it.
Yeah.
Learn how to teach yourself how to go get it. And again, a lot of people will say, well, that sounds kind of mean and victim blaming. First of all, I'm not victim blaming, but I would like for us to start out not being a victim or start
Mhm.
learning what it feels like not to be our own victim. It's one
Yeah.
thing, but look, we come into this sometimes from childhoods where we were victimized. There's
Hmm.
no doubt. I mean, I definitely came from that background. It's now when we become adults, we have to learn what it looks like to live our lives while we're not using the victim mentality as our currency to get our needs met. And this is what your person was doing. She was saying, she likely needed she needed to feel cared for, and she didn't know if she could actually hold herself accountable. But it really is about a good dose of figuring out what you want. Do you want this job? Is it something you really want? And if it's something you want, are you willing to actually do the work to make this a possibility.
Yeah.
And then some people just need to learn that they actually can, that that is an option. Some of these children now are coming into life being told, you can't do that. I know people right now who are supporting their children, and in ways that financially, and what they're teaching, these are adult children in their 30s and 40s, and what their parents are teaching them is that I don't believe you can make it. And so I'm going to keep giving you money and bolstering your ability to function in this life.
Yeah.
It's one thing if you live in LA. I mean, this is the LA is the hub of families living together, and it's because rent is so high there. It's that's different. That's kind of a different situation. Or it can be the same, but
Right.
my
Right.
kids lived in
And
LA for 16 years and they
right.
somehow managed to do it without me, but it was hard.
Yeah, yeah. And that's, I mean, here in Oklahoma, we'll have multi generational homes that have people packed in there like cordwood sometimes. And but then very often you don't see that enabling mentality of, I don't believe you are capable of taking care of yourself. Or, you have a disability, and so I have to take care of you and stuff.
Mhm.
Whenever in reality, they can take care of
Yes.
themselves. They can go out and get a job. They
Yes.
can do things around the house. And so, that's, a good cautionary tale for us parents to make sure that we're not burdening our children with identities or lack of expectations, I guess.
Well, I think with you said it. I think with an identity that is loaded or laced with disability.
Yeah,
And I think the people who know this actually better than anyone are the people who actually have children with disabilities. And what I'm talking about are like parents with cerebral palsy. And I think about one in particular who I worked with for a time. And he is very involved in his son's life, who is pretty profoundly disabled with cerebral palsy. However, they make him and they keep him as independent from them as they possibly can. And I think it's because when they are faced with those realities, and so they must foster their children's independence, where I think often we parents can get into a mode where our identity is getting in the way of us allowing our children to figure out what their identity is. And that's a crime to me. I mean, it's criminal when we are saying, well, my need to be your mother and to identify myself as your mother and a more successful mother than the one that had for a time
right.
period. My mom did heal, but when my identity became just that, it disallowed my daughter from really figuring out what her identity was and how to. And then if you don't have an identity, and we've raised children that don't have real clear identities about who they are and who they are not, they can't set boundaries. They
Yeah.
have a difficult time holding people accountable, all of those things. So it's
Uh,
identity is super important.
yeah. And that is something that which we're about to run out of time, but that's a huge thing that I don't think a lot of people recognize whenever you give your identity up to whatever, I have anxiety, I have chronic illness, I have whatever. Whenever you wrap your identity up in that, then you are giving away so much of your power. You are not going to be able to set boundaries in certain areas that later are going to scare you
Hmm.
whenever somebody crosses that boundary, and somebody will. It
Hmm.
takes away so while you don't have to be responsible for certain things, and you can just say, "Oh, well, I can't help that because of this." But then later, you also don't get to set a boundary in that same area. So, with social anxiety, I'll use that one as an example. So these kids who are like, oh, I have social anxiety, so that's why I don't do X, Y, and Z, can't get a job, don't drive, whatever the, excuse is. Then, because of that, when you do inevitably have to get a job, somebody at that job is going to bully you because social anxiety does not allow you to set boundaries to where somebody does not bully you. That's a For me, that's a pretty big sacrifice that I'm not willing to
It takes
make.
skills. It
So,
takes you do. I think about the times I was bullied. There were four times in my life coming up that I was bullied to the point of being shoved, hit, or punched by my employers as an adult.
yes. Yeah.
Yes.
And
So I had no capacity to, I just was abandoning myself to try to please, people please, and win the approval of someone so that I could feel good about myself. And that is the definition of codependency. It's a daily abandonment of self, identity, a not knowing identity, but getting your identity met through the approval of other people.
yeah.
I didn't have, I think back, and this, like, this is a small thing, but I didn't have a style. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't even have a style of dress. I had no idea how to
Yeah.
dress because I didn't know who I was.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important for us to, participate in new experiences. So new activities, learning your professional or your even your personal strengths and weaknesses, what you're passionate about, trying uh sports, creative arts, traveling, just going out, trying things, trying some different clothes on, interacting with different communities and groups of
Yes,
people
very important.
and
Different
finding
cultures.
yes, different
Yeah.
cultures. I grew up on a farm and I very truly believed that I could never do city living or anything like that. And I had a very sour look at a lot of city people for a long time until I ended up getting a desk job. And then I ended up having to interact with those communities of city people. And come to find out, they're people just like farm people.
Uh, yes,
So
exactly.
they have different experiences and stuff. And, more often than not, they think a farm person is really cool because we have some wild experiences, but our experiences don't necessarily mean those are better.
But those are, like you said, those are our experiences. And so often, you hear it here, especially in Oklahoma. There is this jaundiced relationship with California, which was interesting because
Yes.
it's historically, it was the Okies who came in and were not liked by Californians because they were coming during the
The Great
Depression
Depression,
and the
the
uh,
Dust Bowl.
Dust Bowl, and they were starving when they got there. But now we still have this developed relationship. Families live, half of families live in California still, some of them live in Oklahoma. But if you hear an Oklahoman talk about California, they talk about it in a very negative way because their identity is wrapped up in whatever it is they think Oklahoma is. But in reality, they're cousins and they're people. Many of
Yeah.
them are in California. So
Yeah.
it's not even, it's really understanding your identity that goes deeper than that. That what is it that I love and I'm willing to die for? I
Hmm.
love my daughter and I'm willing to die for my daughter. I was willing to die. I was a person who was willing to die for my country and the idea that I had of my country. These are parts of me that survive all of the dumb other stuff that I used to identify myself. Definitely the part of me that survives loves my daughter, and I loved her fiercely. And I still love her fiercely. That survives. But mothering her is not my identity. And so
Exactly.
it seems like a real difficult thing to divide, to
Yes.
bifurcate, but it's an important work.
Yes, exactly. So, and if you feel like you need some help separating your identity from your experiences and that you really don't know who you would be if everything was stripped away from you, then that is a perfect time to try to come talk to us or, another life coach out there. So Rachel is with mindhikecoach.com, and that's where you can find her. And then I'm with okidokilife.wordpress.com. And so if you need to talk, you need to figure out what your identity is and separate all of that out, then that's what we're here for. And that's what we're really, really good at because we've done the work.
Yes, and it was hard, and we're not judgy. We may sound kind of judgy in this because we're talking about, but we're only that way because we really have been there. But we will not judge you no matter where you are in this process. It's okay to be where you are
It
when
is.
you're starting. And we have been, up the mountain, down the mountain, up the mountain, down the mountain. Definitely I look back at some of my biggest growth, and that was where I was stripped down as the hardest.
Yeah.
So and was at, on my belly looking up
Yeah.
to see bottom actually.
Yeah.
So
And,
please
and
do not prejudge coming and saying, look, I need some help. I feel lost.
Yeah. And through a lot of it, Rachel and I, through our identity building crises that we've been through in our life, we've had to do it alone largely.
Mhm.
And so we understand we can remember the times when somebody was there for us. And that's where we want to be there for other people to help you walk through this so you don't have to do it blindly and trip over everything in the dark.
Right. Yep.
So,
Well, it was so good to see you today, Kathryn.
oh, it was great to see you too, Rachel. And so we will see the rest of you in the next video.
Get a hike in.